Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I think most of you probably know what this bill is and what it does. So really what I want to do is try to get us on the same page on a few things, because I think there's been a little bit of confusion and some misinformation. So I just want to start off and start with some basic facts and try to clarify things a bit. The state of Arkansas created the holiday for Robert E. Lee in 1947 to be held on his birthday, January 19th. In 1983, President Reagan signed a bill designating the third Monday in January to be for Martin Luther King Jr., to be held again on the third Monday in January. In 1985, Governor Clinton signed a bill that moved our state holiday for Robert E. Lee from his birthday, January 19th, to the same day, the third Monday in January, to be held coinciding with Martin Luther King Jr. So again, Robert E. Lee's holiday in the state was created in 1947. In 1983, President Reagan created the federal holiday for Martin Luther King Jr., and in 1985, Governor Clinton signed a bill that combined the two. And one thing I'd like to clarify is that because Martin Luther King's holiday is a federal holiday, we as a state legislature cannot move that day. Now, a lot of people have asked why we moved the day where we're moving it in this bill, which will be the second Saturday in October. And I know that a lot of people have come up with alternative recommendations, and if you've listened to the committee discussion, there were a lot of ideas about where we could move this bill, and I would just submit to you that there is no perfect day for us to move this holiday or to move Robert E. Lee's Day of Recognition. I'm not saying that this is the perfect solution, but I think it is a good solution. And if we're trying to wait around for 100% consensus on when is the best day to do this, I think we'll be waiting until the cows come home. We are one of only 3 states that still celebrate these 2 days on the same day, us, Mississippi, and Alabama. At least one other state has already had this issue and they've addressed it, and that was Virginia, Robert E. Lee's home state, who separated the holidays 17 years ago in the year 2000. Another thing I'd like to mention is that Talk Business did a poll here in Arkansas on this issue, and 39% said that they supported this separation, 33% said they opposed, and the remainder said they didn't know or didn't have an opinion. Now, before anyone says that this might be a fake poll or fake news, I'd just also like to point out that the same outlet, Talk Business, did a poll that had President Trump with a 61% approval rating, which I think is probably about right. So I trust this poll. So I think about 2/3 of Arkansans, it's fair to say, either support separating these holidays or don't have a strong opinion. Now, for me personally, I am the great-great-grandson of a Confederate veteran, as I'm sure many, if not most of you are, and most of the citizens of our state are. In my district, I have the Pea Ridge National Military Park. I have a Civil War battlefield in my district, and one of my elderly relatives have said, and I haven't been able to verify, but my cousin Howard told me that we had relatives that fought on that battlefield that I now represent. A friend of mine who lives down in Biloxi, I go see about once a year at least. There's not a lot to do in Biloxi, so he and I have gone to the Beauvoir house where President Jefferson Davis lived, and at the site they have the Confederate Museum. So I've been to that museum twice. I've been to Jefferson Davis's home. I've been to the Confederate Museum. This is an issue I understand. I understand the history of the Civil War and of the Confederacy. It's my family's history, and I understand it's the history of most people in this state, and I understand it's important. And what we're trying to do with this bill isn't to disrespect anyone, to disrespect our history. It's not about that. All we're trying to say with this bill is we can recognize and remember both of these men on their own day and give them both their due without making this false choice, without having to decide if we're going to recognize Robert E. Lee or recognize Martin Luther King, and without having to worry about, is one going to overshadow the other on this day. In none of the emails that I've received or in none of the discussion have I heard on this bill have I heard one good reason why these two men have to be recognized on the same day or why they should be recognized on the same day. About as far as I could tell, the only reasons are that's the way we've been doing it, which is true, at least since 1985, that's the way we've been doing it. But to me, that's not a good reason to keep doing anything. And two, that these are both great Americans, great leaders, godly men, and I agree with all of that. But there's a lot of godly, great Americans, and I can think of a lot of other people who it would make more sense to have on the same day. But the fact is that these two men, while they were both great Americans and led great movements in their own way, they were from different time periods in our country, and they represent different things to different people. And as Senator Hendren said in committee, it may not be offensive to you, but it is offensive to some people. And one thing I hope we'll do is to do what Senator Hendren did and talk to some people, talk to our colleagues here, try to understand where they're coming from. One thing I really like about this bill is that there is an education component. On page 2 it says, emphasis shall be placed on the historic work of American civil rights leaders, including without limitation Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and his pursuit of justice in civil society. Page 3 says, the Department of Education shall, in advance of the 2018-2019 school year, develop materials or units relating to Arkansas and the American Civil War. The emphasis of this curriculum will be upon civilian and military leadership during the period and how the lessons of that era can inform contemporary society. Both of these units that we'll be teaching in our schools have to come before the House and Senate Education Committees. Now, I've served on the Education Committee both terms that I've been down here. I hope to continue serving on that. And one concern I heard before we filed this bill was, if we move the date, we're going to forget about our history, we're going to erase our history, and concern about our kids, our students not learning their history. And so I think what we're doing with this bill is guaranteeing that at least from now on, we're going to make every effort to teach our young people history. And specifically in this bill about the history of both Robert E. Lee and the Civil War, the history of Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. And we will have a say in that. I'll encourage all of you, when this material is ready, come to the committee and hear about it and have a role in that. But I think we're making a positive step forward in making sure that from now on, students are going to be learning about this history. Another thing I'd like to point out is that in committee, Governor Hutchinson came in both the Senate and the House to speak for this bill, something he's never done for any other bill since he's been elected. I think that tells you how important this is to him. It's important to me. It's important to Senator Wallace. It's important to many of our colleagues here in this body, black and white. And I do believe it is important to people across the state of Arkansas. I think this bill is an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity to correct a mistake. Whatever reason these holidays were combined in 1985, it was a mistake, and it's one that we can rectify today with this vote. It's an opportunity to make sure that our students, that our young people here in Arkansas are learning history. We'll have oversight to ensure the history of both General Lee and the Civil War, as well as Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, are taught in our classrooms from now on. And it's an opportunity to show the citizens of our state and the whole country that we are capable of coming together, not out of political correctness or any other silly reason, but out of respect and out of mutual understanding. Thank you.